Good afternoon. My name is Chad Griffin, and I'm the board president of the American Foundation for Equal Rights. We also have our co-counsel here today, Theodore Olson, who you saw argue on our behalf, as well as David Boies. We also have Theodore Boutros, who argued both of these matters in federal district court, as well as Terry Stewart with the City and County of San Francisco, who you heard so eloquently today. Also, and I think perhaps more important than any of us, we have the four plaintiffs in this case that completely were referred to repeatedly as plaintiff, 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 and occasionally mispronouncing their last name. So we have Paul and Jeff and Chris and Sandy who are here with us and are a reminder of exactly why we're here. And having not asked anyone else permission on our team of what I'm about to do, if Mr. Cooper's still here, I would like to cede my time to him and have him come explain a bit more of what to me was the headline today, where he expressly stated that allowing gay marriage would not in any way harm heterosexual marriages.
At least not now. Right?
At least not now. There was some discussion of that in the future.
Or any time that we could figure out.
Again, as you know, those of you who follow this case, that was not what was stated repeatedly in trial, and that was, I think, a headline moment for many of you and for many of us. Assuming he's not going to come back and answer your questions, I'll speak very briefly. Today we take one more step in the march towards marriage equality, and one step closer to the decision from this court, and to the day when our plaintiffs, Chris and Sandy, and Paul and Jeff, can celebrate a marriage with their families, their kids, and their parents. Sadly, the issues before the court today were ones of desperation and bias by the anti-marriage proponents of Proposition 8. The proponents of Prop 8 attempted to undermine our country's judicial system by accusing the U.S. District Chief Judge of bias, simply because the fact that he is gay, the way he was born. The time for their delays and distractions and baseless claims has come to an end. The American people are now saying, with increasing force, in fact, a majority, that they support marriage equality. Our Constitution's promise, the promise of liberty, is one that every generation must realize. And the fight to secure marriage equality is the defining element of our generation's search for greater freedom. I just want to end on a note, once again putting the spotlight on the actual personal faces and couples. I've already mentioned our plaintiffs, Chris and Sandy, and Paul and Jeff, who have now been waiting since we filed this case almost 3 years ago to get married. They represent thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions of Americans like them. And some of you may recall, in fact, some of you here wrote profiles of Darrence and Ed, a couple who had been together for almost 40 years and were brought to the public attention by the Courage Campaign, by the Los Angeles Times, and by many of you who talked about them. About a year ago, they made their story public, that they had been together for 40 years. They met at Polytechnic in San Luis Obispo, and they were living their lives 40 years together in Palm Springs. And they wrote a very eloquent letter and a video saying that they could wait no longer. They wanted to get married because Ed had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and they wanted to get married while Ed could still remember the occasion. And sadly, Ed passed away last night, and they won't realize that dream. And I think today could be a moment where we remember Darrence and Ed, and that we don't allow any members of this generation and young people and couples like these plaintiffs who want to get married to deny them that right. It is time to stop treating them as second-class citizens, and we are well on our way. And with that, I will turn the podium over to our brilliant co-counsel who have led this case and represented these plaintiffs for the last 3 years. Ted, David.